Hey everybody, I wanted to make a video. I've been working 2 jobs and a few odds and ends jobs around town to save money. I wrote a script and I wanted to enter it into a film contest or a film festival. So instead of going into debt, I just decided to work and save money and then do it that way. So I'm excited about it. So that's where I've been. And I'm getting close to my goal, so I can slack with one of the jobs. My last day with them was actually Friday. So anyways, enough of that. That's where I've been. So you're up to date. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's Mumpy87. I also have Twitter. It's Mumpy87 as well. Facebook is, you might be able to find me with the Random Riley. I don't really know. Facebook, it's kind of stupid. Not Facebook stupid, just the stuff I post on Facebook is really stupid. So there's that, and that's how you can follow me. And also on YouTube, of course. I wanted to make this video. I've gotten a lot of requests to do it, and I just haven't gotten around to do it. And since it is December, I thought perfect time. I'm going to read more of Hocus Pocus 2. This is the script that I've got. I don't know if you can see that. It's crazy, but anyways, font's also a lot bigger, so makes it look like it's a lot. This is water, by the way, or vodka, whichever one you want to think it is. I'll shut up now. Well, not. Yeah, you get it. Okay, so as the family leaves and shuts the front door, the book awakens and the pages begin to flip. A female figure is seen looking in the window. The book is open to the black flame candle spell. At the bottom of the page, it reads, "Should failure find its way to you, a virgin's air will summon you." The female outside the window disappears and a strange cloud of smoke begins to come through the windowsill. Ooh. The character's name is Margaret. We'll talk about her a little more. And pay attention to her. I put a lot of subtle hints in there to where you can figure out where she is. So when I start describing this next scene, pay attention. I'll also talk about it. So anyways. Margaret, forming from a cloud of smoke, hiding in plain sight. Oh, how I've missed you. Walking towards the spellbook that is sitting on the bookstand, the female notices the circle of salt surrounding the base of the stand. Margaret says, "I've waited centuries to take back what is rightfully mine. You will have to do better than a circle of salt." Margaret, reading the spell on the page, "So this child is what will conjure the witches. Interesting." Reaching her hand towards the book, the salt rises to create what looks to be a barrier. The female pushes on and pushes her hand through the shield, and as she does so, her hand is instantly burned and covered in blisters. Margaret says, "It's been so long since I felt real pain. I forgot how much it actually hurts. Nonetheless, I will get my book soon enough. This boy will be the one to hand it over." Disappearing into a cloud of smoke, the woman vanishes from the house. The next scene is the interior of the Boston hospital. Danny, asleep at the nurse's station, is awoken suddenly as if she had experienced a nightmare. The hospital is quiet. Most of the patients are asleep. The terrified look on Danny's tired face is noticed by one of the nurses. Nurse sitting her coffee down. Also, I'm not racist. This nurse is very country in my head, and since I'm country, I don't know why I said racist. It's not racist, is it? I don't know. Anyways, so she's got an accent. Blah, 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 into the nurse's station, nurse sitting her coffee down, and the charts. "These late hours and long shifts have been getting to you. You look like you just seen a ghost." Danny says, "I could deal with the ghosts. I haven't been sleeping very well lately. It's these awful nightmares." "Well, it is Halloween. Guess it brings out the spooks and the spooky dreams." The nurse is wearing scrubs that feature black cats and a witch's hat. A flashback to the night when Danny met Thackeray Binks is shown. Danny looks down at her phone. The picture on her home screen is of her family back in Salem. Danny says, "Did I tell you today is my nephew's birthday?" "No, you didn't. How old is he?" Danny says, "He was born exactly 13 years ago today." That reminds me, I need to get going. I was supposed to be at his surprise birthday party. "His what?" My brother can't keep a secret, so the plans for his surprise birthday party were ruined. Danny is in such a rush to get going, she unknowingly puts her coat on backwards. The nurse says, "Sweetie, that sounds great and all, but why don't you get some rest? I mean, you're wearing your coat backwards after all." Danny is embarrassed and smiling. She quickly fixes her coat and rushes down the hallway. As she's running down the hallway, she looks into one of the rooms. She sees an image so chilling it stops her dead in her tracks. Sitting in the bed of one of her patients is none other than Winifred Sanderson. She looks hideous, older, and darker. She turns her head to face a terrified Danny. Winifred says, "We are coming." Her laugh is heard. The nurse with the cat scrub startles Danny by touching her shoulder. "My, you are jumpy. You forgot your phone back there." Danny rushing into the empty hospital room. "She was just here. Did you see her?" "See who? No one has been in this room all day except for the last patient, and he was that grabby old man with the clingy hands. Please go get some rest." Danny looks at the concerned nurse's face and just smiles and takes the phone from her hand. "Thank you. I can't believe I almost forgot this thing. I will get some rest, I promise." Danny is exiting the hospital, and as she walks to her car, she calls Allison's cell phone. Now, that's the glimpse of it. The short version of it is, I talk about it a little later. Danny is a doctor in this hospital, because I was trying to think, if you fast forward a couple years, where would she be, like in 20 years or so, however many years? Yeah, 20 years. Obviously, she'd be like 28, 29, I don't know. So she's my age, so I should be a doctor. I'm failing life. Anyways, now we jump over to something else. The exterior scene is inside the Dennison's car outside Zach's school. Allison turning to face her son in the back seat. "Have a good day at school, and leave the video game inside your backpack. Be nice to Randy's mother. She made him apologize for what he did. Now you need to apologize to her for what you said." Zach says with his face in the video game. With his face in the video game, he gets out of the car. "Bet she has warts on her nose and drives a broom." Allison's shocked. "Zachary, that's a terrible thing to say." Max, laughing, says, "Bye, buddy. Have a great day at school." Zachary is almost at the front door of the school. The cars are backed up from all the other parents dropping off their kids. Max says, What Zach said had me thinking a lot." "Thinking about what?" "Max, please don't bring up the witches again." "No, I wasn't, I swear. What I was going to say was, do you remember that horrible teacher we had in high school, Miss Wallace?" Allison says, "Miss Wallace, I forgot about her. She hated you and me too because I associated with you. I'm pretty sure she gave Danny a hard time too." The park across the street is lined with tall trees. The leaves are orange and yellow. The two females are shown dancing in circles in between the trees. Their faces cannot be seen. Their dresses are dirty and look torn and scorched. Allison's voice can be heard, and Max watches the two women dancing, hoping they will show their face. Just as the two women come into full view, the crossing guard bangs on the window. She says, the crossing guard motioning for the Dennisons to move on. "This isn't a parking garage, move it along." Max, putting the car into drive, looks back over to the park. "Did you see that?" "See what?" "Never mind, I thought I saw something." Glancing back into the rearview mirror as he drives past the park, Allison's phone begins to ring. Danny's calling her. Allison says, "Oh hey, speaking of Danny, she's calling me." Max says, "Put her on speaker." Beginning the call, Allison says, we were just talking about you, Dr. Dennison. Everything okay?" Getting inside her car quickly. "What were you saying about me?" "I'm fine. I'm just exhausted from working 18-hour shifts." Max was just talking about Miss Wallace and how she treated us in school. 18-hour shifts? You're keeping those coffee chains in business, aren't you?" Danny says as she's driving through the parking garage, "I make coffee nervous. I'm headed home to grab a few things, and then I'll take a quick nap, and then head that way if that's okay. You know you're always welcome here anytime you want. Sometimes I'd like to send Max to stay with you." Max says, "I'm in the car, you know. I can hear you. Hey, Danny." Danny says, "Hi, Max. Listen, Max, have you been seeing anything strange lately?" Max looking over at Allison. "Like what?" Danny's looking down at the radio controls. When she looks back up, she sees the three sisters, Winifred, Sarah, and Mary, are in plain view of Danny's car. Given their history, Danny speeds up her car and as though to hit the witches. Upon the impact, the sisters vanish as if they were never there in the first place. Allison says, "Danny, are you there? Hello?" Shaking, Danny says, "I just saw them, just now, in the parking garage." "Who did you see, Danny?" "The Sanderson sisters. I know I sound crazy, but I just saw them." Max says, "Wait, what? Where are you? Are you sure it was them?" Danny says, "Yes, I'm sure. They were here in the parking garage of the hospital. They looked older and their clothes were scorched." Max says, "Scorched? That's strange. We were here taking Zach to school, and I saw two women dancing in the park and their clothes looked burnt." Allison says, "Where did they go? Can you see them?" Danny says, "I've been having nightmares about the sisters for weeks now. Today I was leaving, and I saw Winifred in the room of one of my patients. Then, just as I was leaving the parking garage, I saw them again. Before I got to them, they disappeared." Max says, "That doesn't make any sense. They don't have the power to vanish into thin air." Allison says, "Can they do that?" Max says, "No. If they could have done that, why didn't they do that in the beginning?" Allison says, "Danny, just get here safely and as quick as you can. I have a bad feeling about this, and I've had it from the beginning." Danny says, "I'm going to head that way now. I'll see you soon." Max Is the book still safe? Has anything strange been going on with it lately? Max says, no, I checked it this morning. The book was closed and the book hasn't woken. Allison says, Max, when we first brought the book back to our house, the eye was open. Only Winifred's presence can awaken the book. And I did hear a female voice calling for the book this morning when I was getting ready. Max says, saying at the same time with Allison, Zach. Danny says, don't panic, he's safe at school. You do not want to look like a bunch of overprotective parents, plus Zach would be embarrassed. Allison says, I feel safer having him in my sight until we figure out what all this means. Danny says, stay calm, guys, I'll see you soon, bye. Allison says, be safe, and that's the end of the call. The couple pulls back into the school parking lot, trying to calmly get into the school and check on their son. I'll stop there for a second. Obviously, Danny's a doctor. The other thing I did was about the clothing. I was trying to pair it up so that, they both saw the women, the sisters, and they were, their clothes were burnt, because obviously if they were sent back wherever they came from, their clothes were probably burned up. So it's just a visual to make them. Obviously, the actors that played them, Bet, Kathy, and Sarah, are still beautiful women, but they're no spring chickens, so they're going to look different. And I'm trying to make it look that, like in the very first Hocus Pocus, they looked hideous and then they got younger. So if we make them look hideous worse than they were before, then when we see them again as, younger women again, then it gives a little, it's like, oh, so it went back. And it makes a little sense. I just confused myself with that. I'm sorry. So yeah, that was one of the things about that. So anyways, inside, exterior shot is inside Danny's car passing the welcome sign to Salem. Danny bends her head down to look at the welcome sign as she approaches. Danny, welcome to hell. Danny notices a small dog in the middle of the road. Stopping the car immediately, Danny gets out to check on the animal. The dog is limping and holding one of its paws from touching the ground. Examining the dog, Danny does not see any collar or tags. Feeling horrible, she takes the dog into her car and looks for an animal hospital. My first few minutes back in this town, and I'm already looking for a hospital, and now I'm talking to a dog. This town already claims I'm crazy. Let them catch me talking to a dog, and they'll have me committed. Driving through the small town, she is scoping the storefronts for a local animal clinic. She finds one on a corner of a shopping center. The town is very busy with locals doing their daily activity. Many of the town folk glance over to Danny, and some smile and others just stare at her. Walking over to the passenger side of the car, she opens the door and scoops up the wounded dog. He is a lot heavier than she expected. Danny says, "First stray, you're certainly eating something." Walking into the animal clinic, she is shocked to find no one in the waiting room. A friendly woman is at the counter on the phone. She motions for Danny to come fill out the waiting list. Her name is Jackie, after my friend Jackie. Yes, ma'am. I understand your concern with Mr. Fluffy Boots. Dr. Preston will be back in the office in an hour or so. I will have him give you a call as soon as he walks in. You too. Alrighty. Goodbye. She places the phone on the counter and addresses Danny, who is trying to fill out the form while holding the wounded hound. Danny says, "I overheard you saying the doctor wasn't currently in the office. Do you know when he'll be back?" Jackie said, "Well, yes and no." Am I missing something? Is the clinic open? Jackie says he's currently in the office. Miss Stiltner keeps calling about her cat. Dr. Preston isn't in the office for her, seeing as her cat simply has the hiccups. She must visit regularly then. Jackie says, "Yes, usually once a day." Danny says, "My brother and his wife live here. Well, my parents live here too, but they're currently on a cruise to the Bahamas, I think, which is rare for them, seeing as my dad hates being on the ocean. He gets sick getting into the swimming pool." Jackie says, sounds like my husband, though he is too cheap to take me on a cruise. Anyways, as I was returning to Salem, I saw this little guy. He doesn't have any tags or collars. His paw doesn't seem to be fractured, but he isn't applying pressure to the left femur. Jackie says, "I'm impressed by you already. You helped a stray dog and you know what a femur is." Okay, quickly on that. I put Zach and Danny's parents out of the picture, but still including them, so they're on a cruise, and then they come back later on toward the end. Just because if they were to decide to make this movie, I don't really necessarily see them bringing everybody back, but if they did, it gives them a loophole that we mention them. Because last time we only saw them for like a little bit, and then we saw them dancing at the end of the movie. So Also, I'm not a doctor, don't know anything about medical stuff, and I haven't even asked any of my friends that are nurses about what a femur is. I think I Googled that when I wrote it. So if a femur is not in the paw or if the foot or dogs don't have femurs, just ignore it. He broke a toe. I don't know what you want to say. Danny says, if you know me, you wouldn't say that. People in this town have called me crazy for years. Jackie says, you're that Dennison girl, aren't you? The one that claims the town was under the spell of the Sanderson sisters? I remember that night. A lot of freaky things happened. I, for one, don't think you're crazy. The world is filled with magic. Some people choose not to see it. I will go tell the doctor he has a patient. Dr. Preston is new to Salem. He took over the clinic. The last veterinarian developed an allergic reaction to cats. If you ask me, I think he just needed a break from this town, and one cat in particular. The veterinarian tech leads Danny into a bright yellow room, brown paw prints around the walls. Seeing the supplies on the counter has Danny thinking about being back at the hospital. She is startled by the doctor when he knocks on the door. Looking down at the forms Danny is completed. So you found this guy on the side of the road, huh? Let's get a look at him. Don't you know single women are not supposed to pick up strange men on the side of the road? Danny says, what makes you think I'm a single woman? Dr. Preston says, I apologize. I was trying to make an unsuccessful attempt at a joke. Danny says, no need to apologize. I am single and destined to be alone, I think. Why do you say that? You seem to be a pretty good person. After all, you did bring a stray dog to get checked out. I'm a surgical intern in Boston. I work 18-hour shifts and I can't even keep a plant alive. Plus, I have no time for a dating life. And I don't know why I'm telling you this. I'm going to shut up. Dr. Preston examining the dog. Being an outsider in a town that isn't the best to meet new people either. I understand the late hours. I was a veterinarian for a 24-hour clinic in Boston as well. I had to get away from the crazy pace of the city. I've always felt like I'm being drawn to this town. I'm sorry, I can't read right now. I've always felt like I'm being drawn to this town. I'm sure that sounds crazy seeing as I just met you. Wow, this dog makes people share their feelings, doesn't he? Danny hasn't looked at Dr. Preston since he walked into the room. She has been responding to emails on her BlackBerry. Just as Danny looks up at the doctor, she is filled with emotion, so much so that she drops her phone on the ground. Dr. Preston shares an uncanny resemblance to Thackeray Binks. Only the man standing in front of her seems to be in his late 30s, early 40s. Danny cannot stop staring at the doctor. She is caught off guard when the doctor calls her out. Dr. Preston says, your staring at me is very distracting. You also dropped your phone. Is everything okay? Danny says, yeah. Everything's fine. Strange, but fine. I feel like I know you. Dr. Preston says, well, you said you lived in Boston. Maybe you've seen me in town when I lived there. Danny says, you will think I'm crazy, but I feel like you were a boy I met when I first moved to Salem with my brother Max. Dr. Preston says, it couldn't have been me. I've lived in Boston my whole life. I found a great deal in this historic house down by the old Sanderson house. Do you know of that place? Danny says it under her breath. Oh, yeah, all too well. I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh, just that I've heard the stories about that place. It fascinates me, actually. I find it strange, but I feel safe around that house, like I'm meant to watch it or something. My friend Binks, said the same thing about the house. Does he live around here? No, he left many years ago. He was freed from the town. You make it sound like a curse to live here. I'm beginning to wonder if it isn't. Dr. Preston wrapping the dog's paw in a green bandage. It can't be all that bad. I mean, after all, I met you here. Listen, this is really forward of me, but I like you. And I know no one in this town. Would you maybe be interested in getting a drink sometime? Danny says, once the town hears that I'm back in town, they will start to talk. Eventually the stories will get back to you, so I think I should just go ahead and tell you now. When I was 8 years old, my brother lit the black flame candle and brought the witches back to life. We managed to defeat them by taking their spell book. The next day, when the town was dealing with the aftermath of what had happened, they blamed my brother and me. They said we were mocking the town and the stories of the Sanderson sisters because we were new. They didn't believe us when we told them what had happened. For all the damages caused that night to the entire town forced the children to do community service to get the town back to the way it was. The event of trick-or-treating was canceled for 2 years after that. Most of my friends didn't speak to me because of that. After I graduated, I moved to Boston, put myself through school, and swore I wouldn't come back here unless I absolutely had to. My brother and his wife Allison still live here. They're respected members of the town, mostly because they never speak of that night. Dr. Preston says, didn't a virgin have to light that candle? Danny says, yes, something my brother was not entirely proud of at the time. Dr. Preston says, well, I'm sure I will meet Max and Allison at some point. After all, this is a small town. Danny says, actually, do you have a costume? Dr. Preston says, a costume, like a Halloween costume? Danny says, yeah, my nephew's having a costume party for his birthday tonight. Born on Halloween. Well, I don't have a costume, unfortunately. There is a costume shop just around the corner. I'm closing after I call Miss Stiltner back. We can go check out the selection if you don't have plans afterwards. Danny says, you've asked me out twice since I've been in this office. At the risk of you asking me for a third time, I will say yes to go to the costume shop. Dr. Preston says, great. Your friend here isn't badly hurt. He has a light sprain. I will get a few x-rays to be sure. We can keep him here, and when Jackie comes in tonight, she will check on him. We need a name for him. Danny says, how about Preston? As flattered as I am, don't name your dog after me. I don't know if I should be offended or flattered. Danny says, Preston's a good name. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Preston? Dr. Preston, seeing as I'm stuck with it, I agree. It's a good name. However, my name is Parker. Parker Preston. Say that fast. That's a tongue twister. Dr. Preston says, you were one to talk, looking down at the form, Danielle Dennison. Just call me Preston, please. I'm sorry, but calling you Parker, please, isn't much better than saying Parker Preston. Call me Danny. Dr. Preston says, okay, Danny. Well, the dog doesn't need a name right this second. Maybe an inspiration will come to you. Let's see. Let me get those x-rays and you will be good to go. I also have a few papers for you to sign. Danny says, yes, the bill. What does a new veterinarian cost? Let's just call it even. You did a good thing bringing him in here, and I got to meet you. You do not give up, do you? Seeing as you're going to be my date to my nephew's party, we need to get you a costume. I have the perfect costume for us. Max owes me big time. Anyways, yeah, obviously they're flirting. I'm not very good at writing flirting because, so it's cheesy flirting. And with the Thackeray thing, I don't like what I did with the script with him because it doesn't line up perfectly like I wanted to. In the script, I'll just go ahead and tell you this. I wrote Dr. Preston to be Thackeray reincarnated. But the problem with that, which I try to explain it a little bit on in the script, is in order for that to actually work, it would have meant that Dr. Preston was born while Zachary was still alive. So it's kind of like, well, then who was he up until? It just gets complicated. So I don't like what I did with it, and I wrote him into the script that is this long. So I couldn't really change it, but I'm not happy with what happened with him. But that's what I'm doing, is Dr. Preston is Thackeray reincarnated. And then later on we touch on the whole like, oh, I think I remember you type thing. So it's like a wake up thing. I don't know. So anyways, Dr. Preston says, I have a bad feeling about this already. I'll be right back. Dr. Preston leaves the room and is carrying the dog into the back of the office. He is followed by his veterinarian tech. Danny puts her phone back together and texts Max. And these are the text messages. And I'll read the text messages, but as you can see, I wrote them like as a text message. So if you're imagining this as a movie, imagine seeing them texting each other. Like, I don't know who texts with both fingers. That's weird. Anyways, Danny says, hey, remember how we never got to go trick-or-treating in the costumes you promised? Max says, what costumes? Danny says, you said if I agreed to go to the Sanderson house with you and Allison, you would take me trick-or-treating as Wendy and Peter Pan. Max says, Danny, no. Danny says, you owe me big time. You did, or did you forget the town banned trick-or-treating for 2 years because of me? Max says, Allison, shoot, I can't read today. Allison said she loves the idea if she can be Wendy and you're Tinkerbell. Danny says, I can do that. I'll check the costume shop in town. Max, are you already in Salem? Danny says, yeah, long story short, I got a dog and a date to the party tonight. Laugh out loud, your date to the party is a dog? Wow, you really are desperate. Danny says, no, you jerk. The dog isn't my date. The veterinarian who bandaged the dog is my date. Wait, you just got a dog and already had to take him to the hospital? Haha, remind me to watch you around Zach. Danny says, just be quiet. I will see you after when I get the costumes. Max says, okay, sis, we were at the Sanderson house. Explain it later. Danny says, funny, there's something about my date that I need to explain to you later on. He's coming back into the room, L8R, because that's the hip way to text later. Dr. Preston is walking back into the room without the dog. He just has a few pieces of paper in his hand. Dr. Preston says, okay, it's just like I thought. He didn't break anything. He just has some fluid on his paws and a minor sprain. I gave him a shot for the pain. We drained the fluid from his paw, and he's sleeping soundly in a cozy kennel in the back. Danny says, what are those? Points to the papers in the doctor's hands. Well, these are pamphlets on caring for a dog, seeing as you mentioned that you can't keep a plant alive. Also, his records of the medicine he was given. You are under no obligation to keep the dog, but, by the way, he did like you. Though he didn't tell me directly. Danny says, looking at the doctor, okay, Dr. Doolittle, I was thinking of putting a few flyers up and seeing if someone lost him. Dr. Preston says, good idea. I have some old scrap paper. We can write up some information on him and put them up on our way to the costume shop. Danny says, I'm beginning to wonder if you didn't let the dog loose so that I would have to come in here. Dr. Preston says, yes, you caught me. I moved to this small town of Salem just to lure you in with a wounded dog. I think you should call the dog Fate. That's cheesy even for me. Ugh. Dr. Preston says, Fate brought us together. Surely someone who has had to fight witches would believe that. Danny says, you believe me about the Sanderson sisters? Dr. Preston says, I believe you think it happened, and that's all that matters. Others' opinions of what happened are not important. So come on, let's go plaster the town with flyers. Danny and Parker begin writing information down on old pieces of paper. They list the hospital number and the description of the dog. They do this on 10 pieces of paper. While they are writing on the paper, Parker calls Miss Stiltner. Okay, so about Miss Stiltner, if your last name's Stiltner, don't get offended. I had a family friend. She was my great aunt, I believe, and she had this cat, no joke, that she treated like a child. Like when she would feed it cat food, she would set it in a like a high chair, and we love her, but so anyways, that's where Miss Stiltner came from. Dr. Preston says, Miss Stiltner, hello, this is Dr. Preston. I got the message about Mr. Fluffy Boots. The hiccups are probably coming from undigested food. A cat food for sensitive stomachs would most likely help. Yes, we do have that in stock. You can pick it up first thing in the morning. No, the cat food you have now will be fine until the morning. Okay, great. I will see you then. Happy Halloween. Oh, I am sorry. Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay, good. All right, you too. Goodbye. Dr. Preston places the phone back on the counter. The veterinarian tech puts her coat on and replaces some files into the filing cabinet. I just realized I had a typo, and she puts the flies into the cabinet. It's a little weird. Dr. Preston says, Miss Stiltner just told me that she does not celebrate Halloween. She has seen too many unexplained things. Is she a friend of yours, Danny? Very funny. She is right, this town is weird on All Hallows Eve. I'll be back in a few hours to check on the animals. There are only 4 animals in the back, so it shouldn't take too long to change out their bedding and give them their meds. Do you need anything else, Dr. Preston? Dr. Preston says, you are an angel, Jackie. If any of the other conditions change, please call me ASAP. Jackie says, I will. Happy Halloween. The vet tech walks towards the door. She flips the open sign to close, and then closes the door behind her. She waves to Danny and the doctor from the outside the glass window. Slowly, she vanishes into the crowded street. Danny and Parker finish the signs, and after putting away the unused paper markers, Danny walks into the back and rubs the paw of the passed-out hound in the middle kennel. Parker just smiles at Danny as he knows she is falling for the dog. After she grabs her stuff, the two walk out of the clinic. Interior of Zachary's school hallway. Okay, so this one, like I said, when I write about Dr. Parker, it's weird because I know where I went with it, and I just don't like it. So the next scene is fairly important, and I will give you a recap on it because I talk a lot, and this video is 22 seconds of me blabbing. The witch, or the woman that we met in the very beginning of the script or whatever, is She tries to get her book back because she says the book's hers, that the Sanderson sisters stole it from her, and we talk about that later. But the important thing to remember is that she did stick her hand through the salt barrier, and I wanted to make it a visual thing because we didn't see that in the first one. What does salt do to people? Like, I know that it stops you, but what happens if you, like, you know? So this is just my idea of, like, imagine, like, you know, creating a barrier and you trying to stick your hand through it and fighting through it, and then you actually get blisters and burns and all that stuff on your hand. So just remember that the woman who tried to steal the book earlier has blisters on her hands. Yes. Okay. The lockers are bright red and the walls are brightly painted. Considering it's a school, Max and Allison run into Allison's mother, Margaret, who is a teacher at the school. Allison says, "Mom, have you seen Zachary?" Margaret says, "He just walked into a class a few minutes ago." "Why? What's going on?" "Hello, Max." Max says, "Hi, Margaret. We were just checking on him. Some strange things have started to happen." Margaret says, "Have you seen them?" Allison, shocked, says, "Wait, Mom, have you seen them too?" Margaret steps into the corner with Allison and Max. "Zachary is turning 13 today. Did you know?" Allison says, "Mom, I know he's 13. Margaret says, "Not quite. He was born exactly 7 p.m. on Halloween." Allison says, "I remember when he was born. I was there." Margaret says, "He will be 13 at the same time tonight. The story of the black flame candle is that a virgin will summon them. If the virgin has a child on the child's 13th birthday, the child will summon the sisters back from the fiery depths of hell." Max says, "Hang on a minute. You're telling me that the Sanderson sisters are going to return for our son?" Allison says, "Why didn't the Sandersons mention this? I mean, basically it says that if they fail, there'll be a second chance." Cheesy, I know. Max says, "This is unbelievable. I thought we were done with those witches once and for all." Margaret says, "Winifred may not be aware of the condition of the spell. After all, it isn't her book. It was only given to her by the devil." Allison says, "Maybe if we destroy the book, it will finally be over for good." Margaret says, "No. I mean, the book isn't the problem. The sisters are. There's too much history in that book to destroy it. Find a way to keep them away from the book until your son's birthday has passed. They will return from whence they came." Allison says, "We left the book at the house. Zachary said he heard a female in our study where we keep it. Could someone be after the book?" Margaret says, "That book is very powerful, and I'm sure someone has been looking for it for ages. I have to get to class, but prepare for their return. Watch for the signs." Max receives a text from Danny. Allison notices her mother's burnt hand. Her burnt hand. Allison, "Mom, what happened to your hand?" "Oh, it looks worse than it really is. I spilled coffee on my hand, and when I was getting ready this morning. Your father tried to get me to stay home after a silly burn." Max says, "You really should get it checked out." Margaret says, "I went to the nurse here, and she gave me a cream for it to help with the pain." "Well, my sister Danny's in town. She's a doctor in Boston, so maybe she can take a look at it for you." Margaret says, "I may take you up on that offer. Goodbye, sweetheart. I will see you tonight at the party. Remember what I told you." Allison says, "Max, we should cancel the party." Max says, "Zach will be so disappointed. Besides, if they are coming back, we have the upper hand. We have the book, and it's protected. We just need to keep Zachary away from the book. Maybe if he doesn't come in contact with it, the curse won't work." Allison says, "I hope you're right. Let's get back to the house and get the spell book, then take it back over to the Sanderson house. I thought you said you didn't want the book back in the house." Allison says, "If we're going to have Zachary's party at the house, we shouldn't leave the book protected. We should leave the book protected at the Sanderson house." Speaking of this party, Danny wants to be Peter Pan characters this year. She said, "I owe her." Allison says, "I love it, but I want to be Wendy. Ask her if she will be Tinkerbell." Allison begins to faint against the wall. Max catches her before she hits her head. Max says, "Allie, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I just felt nauseous all morning. I just got a little dizzy. No need to worry." Max says, "Maybe we should get you home and let you get some rest." Allison says, "No, I'm fine. I want to go with you to the Sanderson house." Max says, "Are you sure?" "Well, Danny said she will be Tinkerbell. She's going to look at costumes. Apparently she met a guy." Allison says, "Good for her. About time she starts putting herself out there. She works so hard. I'm worried her job is all she has besides of us, of course." Max says, "I know. I think she's still obsessed with Binks." Allison says, "Seeing as we named our son Zachary after meeting Binks, I understand why she's still attached." Yeah, I know. I'm just worried that she took all this too hard. She hardly has any friends because of that night. She's had to deal with more than an 8-year-old should have had to deal with. She's made a great life for herself. Max says, I think she's hiding behind her new life to keep from actually living one. Allison says, you're her big brother. You were supposed to worry about her. She's my sister now, and I will help you look out for her. I'm excited to meet this guy she's bringing. Max says, you and me both. Max and Allison notice Ice. He is the janitor of the school. Quickly, they dart around the corner before he notices them. Ice is one of the two guys, I'm sure you guys remember. He was one of the two guys that bullied Max and stole his shoes. Ice is the one that had it shaved into his head. So he's not the blonde, he's the other one. Max says, go quickly. Allison says, oh shoot. Jay, who happened to be the gym teacher for the school, is talking to Margaret. They are blocking the door to the parking lot. Jay notices the couple and smiles and begins to walk over to them. Jay, what's up, buddy? Did you see me on the news this morning? Bet I'm going to be famous or something. Allison says, or something. Jay says, hey, Allie, you're a chick. Would you be impressed if a dude mentioned to you that he was on the news? Allison says, having your picture flashed on the news with the words wanted under it doesn't count as being on the news. Jay says, oh, you got jokes. Allison says, why were you talking to my mother? Jay says, Margaret saw me on the news this morning. She was asking me a lot of weird questions. Max says, like what? Jay says, nothing. I haven't been asked before. Where did you see them? What did they say? How did you get out of the cage? How did they get you in a cage that was hanging over a fire? Allison says, my mother ran the museum years ago. Speaking of that, hey Max, are you going to look for any help for the museum? Max says, I'm looking for someone to help me put up some signs to be safe. The museum is open until after Halloween. The museum isn't open until after Halloween. Are you sure you want to go back into that house after what happened? Jay says, man, that happened years ago. Those broads are long gone by now, right? Allison says, for now. Jay says, wait, what? Max, what she means is we're looking at a way to bring the Sandersons back to be shown in the house, like a mannequin or a hologram or something. Jay says, oh, cool, like some Star Wars stuff. Max says, yeah, like some Star Wars. Exterior Salem Street outside the costume shop. Now, to start my paper. So, what I was doing with this, again, obviously, the big spoiler, is Margaret is involved in this whole, like, situation. I mean, from what I wrote when I watched the first film, I was like, wait a second, how did her mom get possession of the Sanderson house in the first place? Like, I know they turned it into a museum, but why did she get it? And then with the book, with a woman appearing and her hand being burnt, and then Allison's mother has a burnt hand and is very interested in keeping the book from being destroyed, and there's just a lot of things that are starting to plan out that are like, wait a second, they should be paying attention to this. Ice and Jay, I wrote those two in there because I thought they were cool characters. I thought they were really... Bullies aren't cool, but I like that towards the end of it they were kind of like, hey, let us out, and then they were kind of hanging. So obviously Max went back over there and got them out, and they're grateful and all that stuff. So that's where we went with that. So anyways, I just didn't realize on my script I wrote exterior Salem Street outside costume shop, and then this script is a different one. It says interior of the Dennison study. So I think I wrote a little more into it because I don't know if you can see that, but this font changes. So it's like post Mac, tablet. Oh, that's blank. Anyways, so I changed it. So anyways, it says interior of the Dennison house study. The study is the same condition it was when the family left this morning. The room has a slight hint of smoke that seems to be lingering. Allison and Max rush into the room. Max says, Allie, look, the book is open. Doesn't look like anyone's been in here, though. Allison says, why does it smell like smoke in here? Let's just get the book and get out of the house and back over to the Sanderson house. Max says, I think it was the best idea to put it back over there. I know I mentioned it earlier, but your mother had me rethinking it. Allison says, we need to keep Zachary away from the book. Like my mom said, if we keep him from the book, maybe the curse will be broken. Max says, okay, but check out the spell. It's for the black flame candle. Allison says, read the bottom line. Should failure find its way to you, the Virgin's heir will summon you. My mother said they had to kill him in order to stay alive. We have to protect Zach. I won't let anything happen to him or you. You two are my life. Allison runs into the kitchen as Max grabs the book. Allison grabs a box of salt and then follows her husband out the door.